Hello and welcome back to Five to Thrive. I'm Scott Kutcher, and today we're going to talk a little bit about the power of relationships. So, relationships, we all know in business, are extremely important. But I've got a story about one that's dear to my heart, and I don't even know if he knows how much he impacted me as a young sign maker when I was first getting into making signs as my own company. So, many years ago, I had a small sign shop in Piqua, Ohio, and I had this guy come in. He looks like Mario. I mean, he comes in, he's got the mustache, Italian, just such a great guy. His name's Lenny. And Lenny comes in from Cincinnati Sign Supply. And his first stop in there was just to introduce himself, and he literally walked in with nothing but a notebook. That made the first impression. Everybody else walks in, they got samples and they're puking all their great products on you and saying, oh, you got to try this and so on and so forth. He did none of it. Lenny walked in and he wanted to have a conversation about who I was, where I was going, what kind of sign shop I wanted to be. So we sat down in my conference room, which was tiny, and just started talking a little bit about who we were, what my background was, what I knew up to that point, and what we were struggling with. And those were all questions he asked me. He literally wanted to know, what are you struggling with in production? What's keeping you from reaching your goals as a company? I mean, he asked great questions and really took the time to get to know what mattered most to me, right? Now, in that moment, a relationship began to form. And one of the first things he helped me with is we were starting to do a ton of sandblasted signs. I have a big commercial sign background with sandblasted signs, three-dimensional product. And we were starting to do more and more of that. And it was getting really difficult to keep up with all the different rubber masking we had to cut out. So he told me about a fantastic plotter that was by Gerber, that was pin-fed, that allowed it to feed properly. And it was expensive, and I just didn't know if I wanted to do it, but he broke it down in such a way that it showed how quickly it would pay for itself, right? And he was there every step of the way. This is where relationship part comes in. It wasn't a sale for him. It was a coaching that ended up in a sale. And so he coached me through, we qualified several different products that I could have used, but we landed on that Gerber because he had great luck with it. He knew it well, and he knew that it was going to last and do the things I wanted it to do, according to what I told him my goals were. He comes back. It gets delivered. The man marks it down when it's supposed to be delivered and shows up on my doorstep and says, hey, I told you I wasn't going to leave you alone and to fumble through this. Let's work through this the best that we can. I've got tech support on AutoDial. We can get them anytime we run into a snag. Let's get this thing hooked up. And he stayed with me and helped me get it 90% hooked up. And I was starting to run. And then I said, I got it from here. And he left. That seeded a relationship with Lenny that has spanned a lot of years. And I'm very privileged to start working with him again this year in a new capacity as one of his independent reps for a couple different brands that they're selling through the distributorship that he works with. And Lenny is just one of those people that's a gem in this industry. And he's highly regarded, highly respected. And it all starts with the fact that he took a moment to get to know me and really understand what I needed. That impact has led me all the way through my career. And it's how I do business to this day. It has made such an impact on me. That's the way I operate. So the power of relationships, what did that mean? Well, over time, he was with a small distributor, Cincinnati Sign Supply at the time. I had needs they couldn't fulfill, and I would always go to him first, even though I didn't know if he could be able to take care of them for me. And in typical Lenny fashion, if they couldn't, he referred me to the right one that could. So that relationship continued to grow. I did the majority of my business with them throughout the years, and it's the power of a relationship. I could have got cheaper prices some other places on some of the product, but the support and the relationship and having someone I could pick up the phone and go, hey, I'm struggling with XYZ. Do you know of anyone else? And even if he didn't know in the moment, he would say, let me get back with you. And within a couple hours, he would call me back and say, I talked to so-and-so. They've had the same issue. This is how they solved it. You might want to try that. what is that worth to you? What is that kind of a relationship worth to you over just getting a cheaper component price? Because I would have wasted so much more time looking for it. I mean, if you start doing the cost analysis of just your time, if you want to be just logical about it, it does not pay to just buy from people because they're cheap. You got to buy from people, I'm sorry, because they add value, true value. And if they're not, fine, find some places cheaper and use them. But if they add value and they're competitively priced, I think you would be crazy not to not only have the relationship, but work on it, foster it. Make sure you add value back to them. Make sure they're your first call. So until next time, sign on.